Welcome to Zkast, everyone. I'm Zeus Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm joined today by Tannis Baldock, who is the founder and owner of Baldock Communications. So welcome, Tannis.
Thanks, Zeus, for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, you were formerly SVP at Hotwire. You recently started your own company. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What does Baldock Communications do?
Sure. Thank you for that. I've been in comms probably my entire career, all in agency, big and medium-sized agencies, and thought I'd take a try at my own gig this year. I love working with C-suite clients in really B2B tech, and those who struggle or are in a transition with the narrative. And this year, of course, we saw everything was about Gen AI.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Gen AI. We're at the end of 2023. We're looking ahead into 2024. Generative AI really hit us faster, I think, than anybody thought we would. In fact, it was about a year ago that ChatGPT launched. And at the time, I think Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, said this would be the iPhone moment for artificial intelligence. Do you think that's true? Do you think it's happened?
I think that every CEO who's been on every keynote stage this year has said something like that, and I think it's true. Though I think I think Gen AI will change everything in work and in home, and it's exciting because we're seeing real world use cases today, and that's probably the exciting part for me.
So earlier this month, I was at the AWS reInvent show, actually the tail end of last month, and it was a big topic there. Yeah. In fact, they launched their Amazon Q, which is their Gen AI assistant for all their products. Now, I've also been to a lot of other shows, Cisco Partners Summit, Five9 had an event, there's Veeam had an event, there's lots of events I've been to, and Gen AI came up in all of them. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, though, is the messaging from all the vendors sounds largely the same, right? It's going to help us, it's going to be more productive. Microsoft has Copilot, things like that. So what's your advice to marketers on how they should think about Gen AI in a way that's going to help them stand out?
Zeus, I think it's a huge thing, like you said, and I think we saw. I'm going to go back to your AWS reInvent moment. I think the reInvent event is an industry show now. It's beyond just AWS. All of their partners, all of the vendors on stage are trying to craft a crisp messaging point or a differentiator with regard to Gen AI. I think we're living in a world where, as marketers, as CEOs, when I'm talking to CMOs, messaging has got to be flexible. It has got to be we talk about it as living messaging, if you will, because it's got to change very quickly to get more precise, more specific about what vendor X can do for their prospective clients and their customers. It's something that has to be really refined. And for marketers, the key here is that we have to partner with sales or buddy with sales. We have to be elbow partners together to get that messaging really focused, to differentiate. Because everyone who's in marketing or communications, we don't want to have vanilla messaging out there. We really don't. It hurts us for you to say that that's what you found. So our challenge is trying to get it as specific and unique as possible. And that's where we rely actually on third-party analysts to help the marketing team and the comms teams get clearer too on the messaging, get more specific, so we aren't just creating what I would call vanilla messaging for the market, because it's a disservice to everyone.
Yeah, and do you think, from what you've seen, when I look at all the generative AI clients, some are easy to use, some are hard to use. I thought one of the more interesting ways of deploying was at the WebEx 1 event. The WebEx assistant actually prompts you. It says, hey, you stepped away for 10 minutes, you want us to catch up. Have you seen any that you like more than others? I
like what you just said. I think it sort of pings for me what some of the messaging, we would call it how to operationalize the messaging, how to make it real. I love when a vendor says, we have a team already working with Gen AI and they're training it to do X, Y, and Z, and here's what we're finding, whether that's in HR or whether that's in the content team. But using it and talking about those insights, I think is really helpful. I think anything that's, again, proactive, like the prompt that WebEx gives you, phenomenal, because people are still everywhere, whether you're, an end user or what have you. There's so much information. You want something you want to be smarter on, say, like a WebEx call. I would love to have an AI assistant say, Tannis, for that meeting, here's the last notes from that client meeting that we had, and here's the PowerPoint reference that, I hear you talking about. Oh, and I love a prompt about, as I'm a Gen Xer, I would love to hear what a millennial language would like to hear. I'd love to hear some prompts that I sound smarter and then we all evolve better. I'm optimistic, I suppose, about Gen AI, but I'd love to hear, I like to hear the real world kind of use cases.
Yeah, now there's an obvious media-facing benefit
Yeah.
to being able to orient your messaging around Gen AI. I know you work largely with integrated communications, so AR, PR, even
IR.
Even IR. And so I was curious about that. Is this something you're seeing your clients having to message at an investor level? Do those folks care about generative AI?
Hugely, yes. Anyone who's probably been in comms, AR, marketing the past 9 months to a year, you watch the stock go up literally when, a brand references Gen AI and how many times they use Gen AI or AI. And it is really a tracker. It's a marked difference. I would say all stakeholder audiences are looking for you to talk about it in a meaningful way. So that is investors, that's shareholders, I think that's customers, your sales team, your partners. I'm often talking to boards or at the CEO level, CMO level, and we're trying to get their messaging right for right now so the sales team can go in and sell. I think if you probably would have heard even at the reInvent session, so many people talking about, if you're not talking about Gen AI in a sales meeting right now, what are you talking about? You're almost too late to some degree if you haven't started messaging for right now. But to your point, people aren't just interested in the vision. They're interested in how can I use this today? And then there's a larger discussion, I think, about infrastructure. Is your infrastructure ready? Have you, it sounds like the cool, sexy thing we all have to do. But I think the big challenge is the enterprise infrastructure ready? And I think that's the hard work. And so I'd love to see those enterprise infrastructure vendors also step up and talk about, whether it's creating an office of AI or an office of, best practices around it, use cases. I think there's a real gap in the market from the enterprise tech vendors leading out on this versus being, I think, too conservative maybe.
Yeah, the infrastructure side is interesting because that's come up at Cisco events, Arista events, even NVIDIA. The investment required now to modernize compute, storage, networking, your applications, what you're doing with the cloud in order to make Gen AI work isn't insignificant, right? Like there's some money that's going to have to be spent here.
That's right.
And I just wonder if companies are prepared for it.
I think that to your point, that message needs to be, I think, communicated as crisply and clearly as you just delivered that from the enterprise tech vendors. And I think that would help close the gap. You were talking about how investors respond. They would respond to a CEO talking about that during their financial earnings call, about the challenge, about the investment. That would give better future-looking, forward-looking statements and guidance, because you have to understand it's not easy to do what we're all talking about doing in the industry. It's going to require a big turn, and we need to all understand what those turns like on the B2B side of the house.
All right, so last question here. For the marketers and communications professional watching the show, 3 pieces of advice how they should think about Gen AI moving into 2024. What are the things they should be messaging?
Okay, I hope you partner with me on this because I don't know that I've got 3. I think for me, it is what I've already talked about here.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about here. I think it's getting really crisp on messaging. I think there's an opportunity where you can be educating and informing as well. So you have to explain what your company does in the tech stack in terms of Gen AI and how that's going to impact the use case. Ideally, to talk about use cases, name those use cases and how your customers are using them so you can either accelerate your sales cycle, but you've got to get really specific on that and you've got to name the customer and how they're using it. And I think sales and marketing have really got to partner together more than ever before to get messaging that works.
Okay, then I'll
less
give you,
jargony.
and then I'll give
Yeah.
you one piece of advice as well,
Okay.
for the audience there. I think you have to be crystal clear what you're doing in the area of privacy and responsible AI. I think there is so much fear around Gen AI run amok.
Yep,
Right, that
absolutely.
the bad guys could use it to send emails from your CEO and the tone of your CEO, right, to for nefarious purposes. And I think I do think there's going to be some government legislation. I hope this country doesn't over-regulate to the point where we slow it down. But I do think all the vendors need to be crystal clear on what they're doing in the area of responsible AI and security.
1,000%. So I'm glad you brought it up because I didn't have that in mind. And I think it's really important, whether it is the government task forces or the policies that you're communicating about that. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen with their data and then where the AI component comes in on that. And we've seen so many still like breaches and security hacks. Those aren't going to get less, they're going to get more. And so I agree with you. That's got to be, I don't know, maybe you would have seen something in terms of like, is that the top 3 worry, one of the top 5 worries? Yeah.
Yeah, and then lastly, I would think, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, I don't want to see the vendor community market too far ahead of their capabilities. I think it's important to sell the vision of what this can do, but I think right now it's hard to tell. There's so much noise out there. It's hard to tell what actually works today and what doesn't work today. Yeah. And I think I've talked to some users that have tried these things out, and what they're finding out that certain feature they want on the 2025 roadmap, right? And so it's okay to market a little ahead of your capabilities, but I think you want to rein it in and actually help customers understand what they can do today, because that's ultimately how they're going to test your systems.
Yeah, bravo. I like that too. And I'm certainly one of the first to say market ahead or put that press release out. So I do like that counsel because it's certainly what we hear from media right now as well, that are, they want to just know how are you using this in really practical terms.
And then there's the obvious, invest in hybrid analysts.
Yes, it's a good investment.
Yeah.
I think because the way we work with hybrid analysts like yourself is because you can help distill down a story for the sales team or for customers or prospects, and you get us out of the weeds in a lot of ways. And you often have great channels like a podcast or a webinar, and those become lead gen opportunities. So. Definitely.
All right, Tannis Baldock, if people want to learn more about Baldock Communications, where can they go?
They can go to baldockcoms.com.
Okay, so on behalf of Tannis Baldock, I'm Zkast Caravallo from CK Research saying thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on another Zkast.